There's a certain talent that goes into making shows and movies that are meme yet good, and even more talent in achieving the perfect balance. For a lack of a better term, I've been calling this type of viewership ironic watching, but if I'm enjoying the content, how ironic is it? After all, creators deserve praise because we are consuming what they put their hearts into, but I'm not creative with names, so let's call it ironic watching non-derogatory. I can never place exactly why I liked watching the 90s Mortal Kombat movies, or why my generation considers the B movie to be a work of art. Even now, Gen Z is having fun with the new Minions movie. Really, anyone who has the slightest interest in TV and film understands that sometimes something is so silly that it just may be better than Pulp Fiction. Let's take a look at one of my favorite action films, Velocipaster. As the name suggests, the film is about a pastor who gains the ability to transform into a velociraptor and uses his newfound powers for good. You may be thinking, this is the dumbest idea ever, there's no way they actually thought this was good. Well, of course not. The creators knew this was a silly concept, and right off the bat, you can tell it was intentional and they leaned into it, making it so goofy that it looped around the artistry scale and became good again. While Velocipaster tried to be goofy, Mortal Kombat stumbled into the same role because, unfortunately, the 90s. Is it better to try and make your movie satirical and succeed, or attempt a genuinely well-produced movie and fail in the best of ways, authentically? Let's take two movies, Mortal Kombat and Kung Fury, both of which are classified as martial arts films. Mortal Kombat's actors were doing what they could with the materials they were given, whereas Kung Fury's actors were probably told to act as over the top as possible.
Hell no, I work alone.
Not anymore, you don't.
You're alive. Too bad you will die.
The 1995 Mortal Kombat movie had a 20 million USD budget and raked in 122.2 million in box office. Kung Fury had a $630,019 budget from a Kickstarter and currently has over 38 million views on YouTube. Both of these films had decent reception relative to their budget. In my opinion, when it comes to movies heavily based in action, the older ones are more fun to watch, mostly because of how little CGI and editing was used. Now, despite how decent some of the big name films are, you're painfully aware of how much of it is after the fact. Both older and newer approaches to production are worthy of praise, but with action films, I'm personally biased towards the older ones. I think back to Tom Holland's Hot Ones interview where he talked about how Alfred Molina's role as Doc Ock was different in 2004 compared to its revival in 2021.
On this film, obviously, technology has advanced, CGI has become so, prevalent in these films.
Times change, technology changes. Of course, if you're making a serious film, use whatever resources you have to make it look good. But when it comes to using those new advancements in technology while making a parody film, I feel like it takes away a large portion of the charm they're trying to pay homage to. Oddly enough, Kung Fury used modern technology trying to emulate that 80s cheese factor. Again, a huge part of ironic watching has to do with the special effects. The worse the effects are, the easier it is to laugh at. For me, my enjoyment of effects is on a bell curve. I like when they're either really good or really bad, but tend to find anything medium to be forgetful. It's the same discussion my brother and I had when we revisited 100 anime. The really good and the really bad both provided the same amount of discussion and enjoyment, whereas anime that were rated 4 or 5 out of 10 ended up leaving our minds immediately, which is somehow worse than if they were elfin lead. I recently watched RRR, which is one of the best movies I've ever seen, but the special effects were something else. There were times when I felt like I was watching the best produced film ever, and times when I thought, did they just put a gif of fire on top of this scene and call it a day? When I talk about the perfect balance of meme and well-produced, this is it. Because some of the scenarios were so outlandish you had to laugh, but it's also one of the most heart-wrenching stories ever. The actors were phenomenal. I wouldn't even call this one ironic, it was more that you had to take a break from crying at the beautiful plot to laugh at the fake flames and the fact this dude is picking up a motorcycle. Van Helsing looked great in 2004, but when I watched it this year, I was blown away at how dated the visuals were. This isn't bad, aging is natural, and in films like this, the effects age well in a comedic sense while the story ages well in general. Since I pride myself on being a fan of animation above all else, let's talk about ironic watching in this medium, which I typically find has more to do with the plot and writing than the production itself. Because as rough as modern animation can be, it's not an explosion from the first half of the 20th century. When it comes to ironic watching, there is the King of Kings. JoJo's Bizarre Adventure is the most over-the-top, ridiculous excuse of an anime to exist, and one of my all-time favorite shonen. There's not a snowball's chance in hell that Araki wasn't aware that his story was excessive in every way, and much like Ouran High School Host Club is with the shoujo genre, I consider JoJo's to be a soft, satirical approach to the shonen genre while also playing into it. AKA, it's fucking hilarious. If you watched any shonen, even in 2022, then you've seen ridiculous attack names, excessively muscular 17-year-olds, and obscene outfits. This show takes pride in what makes a shonen, dials it up, and then has the audacity to be good. The first season is the most genuine of the series, but then it gets progressively more ridiculous as time goes on, until one of the main characters is an amalgamation of plankton and overalls named Foo Fighters. Somehow, amidst a show like this, are themes of sacrifice, loyalty, duty, and twisted systems. Keijo is another example of something so egregious that me enjoying it means I've either lost my self-respect as a woman, or if done to an excessive degree, I'm just straight okay with objectification. Keijo is a sports anime about girls who fight with their boobs and butts, by the way, but the second you casually toss in the name Attack on Titan, it's clear that it's technically satire. Maybe it's the self-acknowledgement because I didn't find this as offensive as tasteless scenes in shows like Soul Eater, which, sans the sexualization of teenage girls, has an awesome concept and didn't need the fan service. Keijo is 100% upfront about how dumb the idea is and how goofy the stakes are. When I'm ironically watching it, I'm doing exactly what the writers intended. I brought up the bell curve before. If something is objectively very good or overly terrible and dumb, I'm going to enjoy it. Shows that have no impact on the viewer either way are lost to time with nothing to prove they existed other than thousands of viewers saying meh. Elfen Lied was the lowest scoring anime on my brother and I's aforementioned list, and yet I remember it a hell of a lot more than shows that placed right around the middle. What's the point of having a cat girl piss on the floor?
You're talking about it.
Well, that is true.
I always bring up the Masters of the Universe franchise on this channel because of how many iterations and takes on the story exist within it. What started as a toy line has now lasted 40 years and produced movies, shows, reboots, etc. Some of these are genuinely good, and some of these I watch when I need a good laugh. Skeletor is one of the most iconic villains of all time, but it's for different reasons than villains like the Joker and Darth Vader. Skeletor is goofy, and Alan Oppenheimer chose this voice to be nasally because he deemed it fit for the character. People don't like OG Skeletor as a villain because he's threatening, they like him because he's silly. Think of it what you may, I love the way they rebooted the characters for the 2018 She-Ra and the Princesses of Power series on Netflix, primarily because many of the characters in the 80s series had copy and paste personalities or no personality at all. When I watch the 80s series She-Ra, Princess of Power, I'm watching it because the plot and action sequences are silly, lighthearted, and most of all, fun. When I want to watch character development and overarching plot progression, I watch the reboot. Both are good in their own ways, and I like having the option. Be it accidental or intentional, many of these films and shows have moments that catch me off guard with their genius. I don't mean for that to sound bitchy, it's just that if you're trying to make a dumb movie and market it as a dumb movie, and then you have an excellent scene, that's just really cool.
Do you think God stays in heaven because he too lives in fear of what he's created?
My example? Jesus Christ Vampire Hunter, a 2001 Canadian horror parody film. Just by looking at the first scenes, you think it's the dumbest movie ever, and to an extent, you'd be correct. The action sequences are memey, the budget looks low despite being actually kind of high for what it is, and Jesus has a musical number. Oddly enough, it has one of my favorite cinematic moments. Spoilers for Jesus Christ Vampire Hunter, I guess. At one point, Jesus is in a club and goes on stage to perform. This whole time, he assumes he's safe. But when he gets on stage, he notices the only reflections are those of his comrades and himself, meaning he's been surrounded by vampires the entire time. It's a little detail that I found so cool in a movie that wasn't even trying to take itself seriously. JoJo's Bizarre Adventure has some of the most awesome scenes in all of animation. In fact, I find that JoJo's rediscovers that outside-of-the-box creativity that we often lose after childhood. Characters get out of situations in ridiculous ways, but it's so unlike what we're used to seeing. Isn't that just good writing? Ironic isn't always a bad thing, as ironic enjoyment is still enjoyment and inevitably leads to appreciation. It doesn't matter how someone chooses to find entertainment in a show or movie, so long as they're having a good time.